climate change?
Methane is being released when we destroy the wetlands, when we are looking after our livestock. And methane is being released, carbon dioxide is being released, sulfur is being released. Waste management is so bad.
Food insecurity amid a growing population. All these brought out the message that tends towards climate protection. But interestingly, there is a crisis. Food insecurity, the availability and then the affordability of the food is quite important. So you could talk about countries like Uganda that have always been the food basket. But as we progress further, this is becoming more of a challenge. And then we are no longer the food basket of East Africa and maybe Africa at large. Mozambique suffering with the effects of droughts, and then you talk about Somalia, it's quite synonymous when you talk about famine. Ministry of Water and Environment is quite critical, especially when you look at the Climate Change Commissioner. or the Commission for Climate Change, and then the commissioner herself, that's Madame Mwebesa Afieno, Margaret. Recently, at the Climate Change Symposium, she had an interestingly imperative, like they say, from their research, the temperatures have been rising. We talk about global warming, to put it collectively, from as early as 1995. And then the projections are still pushing for the same. So I think it's a general call. And then one of the major issues was telling the public, informing the public, that livestock seems to be one of the most underrated sources of greenhouse gas emissions. But obviously, like I said earlier on, it contributes about 18% of greenhouse gases. When you talk about methane, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, and then the anthropogenic gases that come off cows, and then we could talk about other ruminants. So the communication is quite interesting. So how best can we achieve maximum agricultural output without damaging the ecosystem? It's interesting. So let's take a look at what the Climate Change Symposium had to say for us, and then bank on that as we move further with the program.
The lead up to climate change, largely of human activity, unregulated agricultural production inclusive, has had a repulsive effect on the agricultural industry.
Methane is being released when we destroy the wetlands, when we are looking after our livestock in a very unprofessional manner. Methane is being released, carbon dioxide is being released, sulfur is being released, waste management is so bad. We have a lot of gases now, the greenhouse gases, released into the atmosphere. Those gases are stopping the hot rays from going back into the atmosphere, into the space. So it causes warming within our atmosphere, within the earth.
This has, however, followed the threshold of rising temperatures that, among other factors, have forced changes in weather patterns.
We used to get the normal rains, the normal temperatures, but according to the records now, they show that the temperatures actually started increasing. And when we look at the what was unrest recently, the state of climate, which was unrest for 2021, the results there are showing that actually temperatures are continuing increasing. And when I looked at this state of climate, the temperatures started increasing slightly all the way from 1995.
Climate change is a phenomenon, not just for Ugandan farmers, but for the whole world. And what it means is that we need more resilience in our farmers. We have a very large smallholder farmer population. They are very vulnerable with the changes in the climate, and we need to be looking at the way that we can support them with diversification, with irrigation, and with better cultivation and production techniques.
Livestock production, for instance, accounts for just over 18% of global greenhouse gases, with methane a major, and the emissions cost is barely reflected in the pricing of animal products, milk, beef, hides and skins, among others. The case in Uganda has gained ground as global food insecurity becomes a critical issue of climate change.
The rate of population growth is ahead of the
arid and semi-arid area is still pastoralism. People don't want to hear this, but economics has even proved that sanity will only prevail if we allow those people to practice what they grew up practicing.
Now, as the impact grows, agricultural production is devising means to maintain itself within the relative modes of production, which is quite interesting. But there has been the science, the innovation, industries manufacturing pesticides. We could talk about the fertilizers, NPK, among others. There are parasites that are so imperative when it comes to doing away with infestations for livestock. Key issues. So when it comes to the reliance on these elements, there is a pay for that. The price that comes off over reliance and then the misappropriation of the different utilities. So the people that are into the industry, much as we are dealing with the negativities of climate change, the impact of the droughts, impact of the rain, heavy rains, there is a concern that most people have to take into their mind when it comes to food security, how much we need to produce to serve the growing demand of the population. Globally, over 9 billion people that will be into this universe by 2050. 2050 seems far, but then it's quite near. So what does the over-reliance on these fertilizers, among other elements that are used in agricultural production mean? Let's have a clear look at this.
But as the gross effects of global warming pile, the agricultural industry has been severely hit. Arable lands declining, cropland productivity declining, thus the push for global research and innovation.
Since 2019, I think we have invested in not less than 170 million in only research for a finished product, irrespective of what, because we started this campaign in 2014. We have been rebranding the names, not until we came out with the technology. That's why we call it fertile soil.
During the process of introducing new genes, now this is what we call genetic engineering. The thing that I've told you about, that you can introduce new genes, and then you get new varieties that have traits that were originally not there. So that's what we are calling genetic engineering, or we call it transformation.
Now, as the impact grows, agricultural production is devising means to maintain itself within the relative modes of production, which is quite interesting. But there has been the science, the innovation, manufacturing pesticides. We could talk about the fertilizers, NPK, among others. There are parasites that are so imperative when it comes to doing away with infestations for livestock. Key issues. So when it comes to the reliance on these elements, there is a pay for that. The price that comes off over reliance and then the misappropriation of the different utilities. So the people that are into the industry, much as we are dealing with the negativities of climate change, the impact of the droughts, impact of the rain, heavy rains, there is a concern that most people have to take into their mind when it comes to food security, how much we need to produce to serve the growing demand of the population. Globally, we are talking about over 9 billion people that will be into
instructs the plant that you please produce this kind of material for me to feed. So that's a soil bacteria. It's called agrobacterium. So when scientists discovered it, they said, oh, now we could actually use this bacteria to transfer traits that we are interested in. For example, if it's things to do with drought tolerance, you could identify that trait from, say, a plant that grows in the desert. If that trait exists, then you're able to get the gene responsible for that, and then you're able to transfer that gene into, say, a variety of plant that you want.
So as we head into the break, there is something interesting coming up in the next part of this very program. We've talked about all this, agriculture contributing to greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, and then the fight to maintain it within the most modest spectrum of production. But there is a conflict, and interestingly, to the people that are watching, it will be quite crucial understanding the eventual outcomes of this conflict, the biotech conflict. Now, the people involved in science are on two edges of factions. One is pro-biotech, and then the other is anti. So it's quite interesting. The people that are pro believe they provided us the solutions to the current problems. The respective famine being addressed with climate resilient varieties of seeds, both animals and then when it comes to crops. And NARO in Uganda, that's the National Agricultural Research Organization, has been paramount. So when we come back, we shall be looking into the battle against GMOs. So what exactly are GMOs? And then the people that feel that the pinch is about to get overboard. What do they really feel? And why are they against all this? And then what does the science say? So first, the break. When we come back, more of that.
Driving business.